What is going on, my home studio engineers? As always, thank you so much for checking out the Home Recording Network. This video is going to be all about specialty plugins that are going to be super beneficial to home studio engineers like yourself that are going to help you get closer to that pro quality I know you guys are all striving for. If you've watched any of my content before, you may have heard me mention how us home studio engineers basically have our hands tied behind our backs if we're comparing ourselves to the pros or the commercial studios out there. Since we usually don't have all the outboard gear, pristine preamps, or even the best microphones like a lot of the big guys have, the quality of our tracks is usually way behind. As home studio engineers, we are handicapped, and therefore we have a lot of work to make up in the mixing stage to get our songs to that pro quality. Now, I was mixing a song the other day and working on a new course for my membership site, and I noticed that there were some specialty plugins I was using that my mixes just wouldn't be the same without. And I also thought there are probably people out there that don't even know about these plugins because they're not your typical EQ, compressor, or effects plugins that you see every day. So I have some examples of these plugins and how I use them, where I use them, and we'll get into that right now. But first, if this video helps you out at all, please remember to like and subscribe and hit that little notification bell so you can be notified every time I release a video. All right, let's hop into Logic and we'll go over some of these specialty plugins. All right, so we are in this mix that I worked on the other day, and this is something I'm doing for my membership students. I thought it'd be really cool to remix a song in real time that was recorded way back when I was working out of my basement. And as you guys know, if you've ever recorded in a basement or a not ideal environment, there's just so much work to do on your tracks. So I went through and remixed this song that, really probably wasn't recorded in the best environment. Either way, if you want to check the membership out, there's always a 14-day free trial for that. So I'll probably leave a link for that, or you can just reach out to me. Now, the first plugin I want to go over is something I use on the end of my mix bus, and it's this BX Digital version 3, and it may look intimidating. It's a mid-side processor, but there's really only one knob I want to talk about, and that's the stereo width knob. Now, there are plenty of plugins out there that will expand the stereo field and make your mix sound wider, but this is one of the only ones that I've ever used that doesn't mess with the phase too much, so it sounds pretty natural. Now, let's just listen to a little bit of the chorus with this plugin on.
I know you don't know me, but I'd really like to taste your pie. And I know you're not open, but I'd really like to come inside.
Now I'm going to play it, and I will bypass this thing and just listen for the sides to almost just collapse in with this plugin off. And when I put it back in, just listen to how much more exciting the mix is.
I know you don't know me, but I'd really like to taste your pie. And I know you're not open, but I'd really like to come inside.
Now, obviously, there's a lot more to a wide mix than just a plugin like this. So check out my video on that. I made one on the keys to a wide mix, but this definitely helps. And this starts out at 100, and then you can expand or even bring in the stereo width. So let me just show you if we really exaggerate this.
I know you don't know me, but I'd really like to taste your pie.
Yeah, obviously we don't want to go too crazy with this, but you can see how much more exciting we can make the mix with just one knob. All right, so the next plugin I want to talk about is Soothe 2, and this is probably my favorite out of the 4 of these plugins that I'm going to be showing you today. So Soothe 2 is a dynamic resonance suppressor. So it basically identifies harsh or bad resonant frequencies in the signal and just suppresses them or turns them down. And this is huge for people recording out of their homes. Like I said in the beginning, we don't always have the best microphones or preamps, maybe not even the best guitars or anything like that. So sometimes our recorded tracks are a little sketchy and they could use some help. In one area where this is extremely beneficial is with drums, especially back when I recorded this, when I was tracking drums in a basement, right? We get a lot of problems. Maybe the room doesn't sound good. So there's a lot of issues recording in areas and in locations like that. But this is still helpful to me today. So let me just show you a couple areas where I use this in the mix, and then I'll show you just some areas where you might be able to use this in your home. Now, in this snare top recording, like there is in a lot of snare top mics, there's some hi-hat bleed, right? You're gonna get that, especially if you're in a small room or something like that. But I don't like to gate any of my drum mics. I just think it sounds unnatural. So we can use Soothe 2 here to tame down some of that hi-hat in this microphone. There's some hi-hat in there, but it's not awful. And if we listen to the delta, we can listen to everything that we're suppressing a little bit. Yeah, so those are just some of the frequencies we're taking out, and I'll just turn it up a little bit so that you guys can hear it a bit more. Yeah, so those are the frequencies we're kind of acting on and helping to tame down. Another big area where I like to use Soothe is on any cymbals, so overheads or hi-hat and ride mics. So we have Soothe 2 here on the cymbals bus, and we just have a preset here. They have a lot of great presets, and you can usually just tweak from there. But this is just taming down some of the harsh resonance of the cymbals. So if we play the track, I'll show you the delta and show you all the nasty frequencies that we're suppressing. Yeah, so those don't sound very pleasing at all. So we can just kind of suppress those, offending frequencies. And when we're recording drummers out of our homes, they might not always have the best cymbals. We might not have, the best microphones to capture these cymbals. And we're going to get some of those nasty sounding frequencies. So this is a great plugin to really smooth out your cymbals. And you can kind of get aggressive with this with the depth knob and turn those down, to your liking. You can really just make them not sound like cymbals anymore. Pretty cool, right? Another area where I used this was to tame some of the guitar solo. So we had a really grimy guitar tone in this guitar solo. Yeah, so before Soothe 2, this thing was just very bright. Solo this. We'll bypass Soothe. A lot of harsh frequencies, and if we bring this in, still a great guitar tone, but we just help to suppress some of those frequencies, and I'll show you what those frequencies are. Yeah, just some awful sounding frequencies that we're able to suppress. Now, you can use this on really any track. So if you have maybe a bad acoustic guitar recording that you need to clean up a little bit, you could easily use this on that as well. Obviously, the best case scenario is you track the instrument right. But whatever that instrument is, if you have a bad recording, and this plugin is just going to help to make it sound better. And it's very easy to use. All right, so let's move on to the next plugin. A plugin that my vocals just wouldn't be the same without is the Revival plugin inside Virtual Mix Rack from Steven Slate. So this plugin is a sonic enhancer, and it's got two knobs, a shimmer and a thickness. So it's basically a high and low end bump. But the thing about this is it's so gentle, so you can actually go pretty big with these moves, and it's probably not going to hurt your track. It's much more gentle than just throwing EQ on something. So let's play this vocal track and mess with the shimmer as well as the thickness.
I know you don't know me, but I'd really like to taste your pie.
That shimmer is just really pleasing to the ear, and the thickness is great as well.
I know you don't know me, but I'd really like to taste your pie. And I know you're not open, but I'd really like to come inside.
What I love about this plugin is you can boost this thickness up and get just a rich low end in your singer's voice. Whereas if I were to use EQ in boost, things might start to sound a little too muddy. So this is just a really nice way to get some low end on your singer's voice. And the shimmer too. Obviously, if you go crazy with this, your vocalist is going to get too bright. But this is a great way to get your singer on top of the mix over the music. This really just adds a sound that an EQ can't. And it's simple, right? If you need more top end, there's one knob. If you need more low end, there's one knob for that. Another area where I use this as well is on my Vox thick send, and it's an effects send, again, to get your singer on top of the mix. And I have a video, two videos actually, specifically on this parallel technique that I know is going to help you out. So make sure and go check that out as well. This plugin is actually great for your mix bus as well. So if your mix just needs a touch more low end or top, this is a great plugin to use. You know, if you don't want to reach for an EQ and find the specific areas to boost, this is an easy way to do it. And in this mix, we're just adding a touch of the thickness. But if we listen here, it might be cool to add, if we don't need it in this case, but if you wanted to add some more high end to your mix, this would be a great place to do it and a great plugin to do it with.
I know you don't know me, but I'd really like to taste your pie. And I know.
And if we wanted to add more low end,
I know you don't know me, but I'd really like to.
You know, it's all depending on what your mix needs, but this just shows you there's an easy way to do it. The last plugin I want to talk about is actually something that's bypassed right now, and it's not anything that affects your mix, but it's a monitoring plugin, and it has simply been a game changer for me, and that's Sound Reference ID. This is a piece of software that actually EQs your room so that when you're listening back to your mix, you're getting a flatter response. If you're mixing with monitors and you've ever had that issue where your mix sounds great in your room and you take it somewhere else like your car and it sounds like garbage, this is the reason why. Your room is not a great room for mixing, as most of the rooms in our homes are not a great room for mixing. And right now I'm going to tell you something that I've just learned over the past 15 years. I don't care how much treatment you put in your room, where you place your treatment, how well you've studied this idea and science of acoustics. No room in your house is ever going to be perfect for mixing. You're always going to have low end buildup and issues in the frequency spectrum. It's just the way it is. We're not commercial studios where they paid people a lot of money to come in and set the room up perfectly. We have drywall around us. I don't know what your environment is, but you're just not going to be able to trap enough bass in your room to get an ideal mixing environment. Now, I am not saying you don't need acoustic treatment in your room. You do. This plugin alone will not solve your issues if you don't have a treated room, but this alongside treatment is gonna make it a lot easier to mix. This software comes with a microphone, which you hook up to your interface, and you run some calibration tests on your room. It's real easy. It actually walks you through it. Takes about 20 minutes, but it will spit back an EQ for your room so that you can put this at the end of your chain and listen through this calibration and EQ software. Now, if I turn this on, it might sound a little strange to you because I don't know what your room sounds like. You might not need this exact EQ, and this will especially sound odd if you're listening on headphones. It's going to just sound too thin, but I'll show you it anyways. And this isn't something that I use when I switch to headphones for referencing. I turn this off because I don't want the calibration on. But here, I'll turn it on and show you what it sounds like. And you can just hear what it's doing to the EQ in my mix.
I know you don't know me, but I'd really like to taste your pie.
Yeah, and if we look, my room has a problem around 150 hertz and then down and around 60. So the low end of my room, which is to be expected, was the issue, as it will be with a lot of your rooms at home. And when you're using this, the only thing you have to remember is to bypass it before you bounce your song, because you obviously don't want this software on when you're bouncing or when you're sending it out for mastering. This is only for monitoring. Those are really the 4 plugins that I wanted to show you guys that aren't your typical EQ, compressor, and effects plugins that you see out there. Maybe you've heard of these, maybe you haven't. But I hope you've gained some knowledge for this. Hope that I've helped you out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or just reach out to me. Happy mixing, guys. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to download your free Ultimate Home Studio Mix Guide with your go-to EQ and compression settings for all your tracks. And also be sure to register for my free online mix training that I hold a couple times a week so that you can learn how to make radio quality music from your home without breaking the bank.